The Carl B. Phillips Show.
Hosted by me, Carl B. Phillips, Uncle Carl.
The Carl B. Phillips Show.
Get ready for another great conversation on the Carl B. Phillips Show. Welcome to the Carl B. Phillips Show. I am Carl B. Phillips, Uncle Carl. This week's guest is a father, a pastor, a playwright, actor, comedian, and recording artist. Please help me welcome my nephew, Pastor Ron Todd.
Oh my gosh. When you say all that, I just, I really feel like I'm of Jamaican descent. I tell you, all those jobs, listen to that.
Yeah,
Wow.
you do a lot.
I do a lot. I do.
Yeah, you do a lot, but it's okay. It's okay. The Bible says whatever your hands find to do. And
That's right.
Your hands are finding a lot of things to do. So as
It
I
also said the man that don't work don't eat. So, and I like to eat.
Oh yeah, that's my saying, man. Don't work, don't eat. I'm gonna go eat, and my gut shows it. You've conquered what you're eating, so you don't have to deal with that. Well, we were somewhere, and I'm like, I'm gonna hide behind people because to hide my belly, you're like, I don't have to do that no more.
Right. Oh yeah, I've worked hard on that too.
Well, as I stated, I am going to ask a couple of random questions. First random question: what is something important a grandparent or older mentor taught you?
Something important that a grandparent or an older mentor taught me.
Yes, sir.
That all publicity is good. And a lot of times we get weary or we get worried and stressed out about negative things and rumors and things that we hear, when you're a public figure on any spectrum, people just say and they talk, and it's just kind of a part of the, it's a part of the being someone that's notable on any level. And I think it's human nature to get worried about it. And I was taught, actually, this wasn't by a grandparent, but definitely someone who was a father figure, the late, great Bishop Stephen J. Bennett. He says, man, don't worry about, when people talking, don't you know that's free publicity?
Wow.
He said, you'd be surprised how folks don't even know who you are. Never heard your name called, but now they know your name. They know something about you. And what you do is you just make sure that what people are saying is not true.
That's
I said,
wisdom.
okay. Yeah, and that has stuck with me. If your name not in anybody's mouth, you're not doing nothing. But if it is, chalk it up to free publicity, and you just make sure that anything negative that they're saying is not true.
Okay. Keep my name out your mouth. No, don't keep that. Keep it in your mouth. Keep talking about, because
Keep talking about me.
I got music out. I got plays you need to buy tickets for. Yeah.
Make folks Google me. Make folks go on Spotify and look my name up. Do all that. And while they listening, let them get blessed by the music. While they searching, let them get blessed by a word or something. God bless you. God bless your cotton picking heart.
I love that. Now, in reading your bio, I found that you started preaching at 8 years old. At
Yes,
a young age. What was behind your choice to be a preacher?
So when I was born, my parents were pastors, and I will shout them out. Pastor Ron Todd Sr., who's the pastor of the historic St. James Missionary Baptist Church. And then, of course, my mother, Bishop Apostle Celestine Todd, she's the pastor of Anointed by God Ministries and the presiding prelate of CWC Fellowship of Churches. And so growing up, with pastors and preachers, being a PK, it almost seems inevitable that I would have been preaching, but I really didn't want to. But when you're a PK, you got to do everything. Right. So I was the organist at one point. I was the drummer. I was the usher. I was the praise and worship leader before. Well, it was devotion for a while. Then we didn't. I don't even know if we called it praise and worship, but I did that. And when there was time for youth, we were having some sort of youth revival. When I was coming up, we had YPWW, which was called Young People Willing Workers. And we had all these really cool services that we did. But I remember there was a youth revival, and they're like, we got to get one of the young people to speak. Here we go. Of course, we're going to have Pastor's son speak. And it's like, I don't want to speak. Me speak, Even then, I was more into arts. I was more into singing and things of that nature. So I really didn't want to speak. But I did, and there was really good feedback from there. And so then after that, it seems like every time that it was, time for somebody to speak, it was like they always wanted me to. And so I would say around my teenage years, I knew the call was there. I just didn't really want it. I wanted to focus on singing in other areas of ministry, but uh, I learned quickly to stop running. The opportunities kept coming. People continued to be blessed, and so I knew that that was where I needed to be. So,
I think you bring up a great point. It's kind of going to be one of my questions about, did you feel pressured to go into ministry? And you kind of answered that it was sort of pressure, but it sort of wasn't, or it was
mhm.
pressure until you realized that this is where God has called for me to be.
Yeah. I think as a kid, the pressure was filling shoes. I
Mm,
felt like, because at that time in the 90s, my parents had it going on. They had one of the largest churches in the city. They were very notably wealthy people. And so, a lot of people looked really well to them. And so even as a kid, I kind of looked at them like, wow, these are like superheroes to me. And so for me to have to follow behind that, I was a bit intimidated, to be honest. And so, no, I didn't want to do it, but they didn't really pressure me to preach necessarily. The pressure from them was more so, you're going to do whatever we need you to do in this church because we the first family and that's what we do. It's not necessarily, we weren't cute first family where it's like we sit and with our sharp outfits. Now we looked good, we were flawless nonetheless, but that wasn't just it. It wasn't about looking good and it was like, no, we're here to work. We're servants, we're lead servants, and we're going to do that from the first family. People are going to see, my kids don't just sit around and cause trouble in the church. You guys work. And so that was, we didn't have a choice in that, but not necessarily into ministry. It was kind of left up to me what I wanted to do. And of course, singing was my passion. And so that's something that I was allowed to do more and had more liberty with.
mm.
And the preaching just seemed to, it was a notable call. My parents knew, but they weren't forcing me. When I was ready and I came to them and I was, when they knew I was serious about it, it was after some time had went on. It's no secret my parents divorced when I was in my young teens, maybe 13, 14 years old.
Mm.
And so that's how I ended up at House of Prayer and Praise with the late Bishop Stephen J. Bennett and co-pastor Valerie Bennett. And so, and that's also how I became apostolic. I grew up in a non-denominational church up until then, and now I'm apostolic to my bones. But so I went over there and I learned a lot about ministry and just flowing in excellence. And then when I became a young adult, uh, again, my music ministry was moving, but people kept asking me to speak. And again, I knew the call was on my life. And so I ventured out and I became a member of another apostolic church where I was doing praise and worship at. And I spoke to the bishop at the time, who was Bishop Ronald Johnson, and told him about the call that was on my life. And I take that back. I've moved too fast. I was at Rhema with Bishop Eric Lloyd.
Mm.
And that I first started preaching. I was ordained a minister at Rhema, and then I was ordained pastor at Bishop Johnson. Lord Jesus, I get them mixed up. But anyways, so I knew the call was there, and I just accepted it. I did. I accepted it, which is, a lot of people at that young age don't. But I really feared God, and I really wanted Him to use me, and I always wanted to be used. And my goal was to be used however he pleased, not necessarily what I wanted, because I knew that my ways weren't his ways and my thoughts weren't his. So even though I thought that my ministry started and ended with music, apparently he had another plan.
You kind of touched on a few things. You're a licensed minister, you're an ordained elder.
Mhm.
You also have a bachelor's degree in Christians ministries, and you're the pastor of Kingdom Dwelling Ministries. Talk about the challenges you see today's pastors facing in building a church, either in person or online.
Church is different. Church as we know it, I'm not sure if it'll ever be the same. I can't make that call, but I tell you, things have totally shifted. And I think the pandemic definitely had a big part in that, if you will, because we were all forced to not gather and assemble ourselves in person. And so what happened was you have people now who don't feel like it's necessary to gather as long as they, they feel like as long as I go online, I'm getting the word. That's all the church, if you will, that I need, or that's all the ministry affiliation that I need. And I'm not sure if that'll ever change. A lot of pastors, a lot of ministries on their level have experienced a big falling away from the brick and mortar. And again, I'm not sure if that'll ever be the same again. It's interesting because people will fill up a church for a concert, they'll fill up the arenas, but it's something about coming into church on Sunday morning that there's been a split. It's almost like a 50-50. You got 50% of folks who say, listen, I've been a church baby, I'm going to go into the building. And then you got the other 50% that says, hey, I'm going to watch online. And then, giving is down. There's so much talk about giving now. And, everybody says, well, Malachi is the old the Old Testament rather. So I don't have to worry about being cursed with a curse anymore because I've robbed, God for not sowing my tithe and offering. So we don't believe that anymore. So I'll give the church what I want because I believe the pastor's taking out the money anyway. There's been a big misconception that many pastors do that. And, I've been on a mission here lately, and I don't want to take you too far off what you asked me, because I think a lot of people misunderstand what it takes, one, to govern a ministry or any organized situation of that nature. It takes money.
Right.
I tell pastors all the time, I've been pastoring, it'll be 13 years now. And I started very young. However, it takes money to start a church. It's different when you're grandfathered in or you're hired in or something of that nature. But when you found a ministry from, ground zero, it takes money. And I'm not saying that you're going to have grants and this and that. Some people do. But if you don't, you better have some money, the pastor. Because if you want to get a building, whether you're buying it, leasing it, renting it, you got to pay for that. You need instruments. You got to pay for that. You want musicians. You got to pay for that. To keep the utilities on and things like that. You got to pay for it because you're not going to have people automatically. And then even once they come, you got to teach them, unless they're already church, the importance of sowing into the ministry. And so a lot of times I remember earlier on telling the congregants, they would say, well, Pastor, I just want to see where the money's going. And I would pull out a ledger and show them that their money was going toward the bills. What do I mean by that? Is their money plus mine is what was making it happen, because it wasn't enough. So, there are lots of even mega ministries, large ministries, where people are like, well, the pastor's driving a Bentley. Right. But he gets a set salary from the church, as he should, because he works full-time in ministry and it keeps him busy full-time. But he has other assets that have nothing to do with the ministry that you may not be privy to. So you're so worried about putting money in his pocket, and you should be giving it to the Lord anyway. And guess what? When you give unto the Lord and he prays over it, God's going to add the increase. That should be your mindset, not, oh, well, I wonder if he's going to take my money and get a new car with it. Guess what? If he do it, may the mercy of the Lord be on him. You see what I'm saying? Because at that point, it has nothing to do. God is not going to punish you or take from you because you gave unto him and it was mishandled by the man of God. So it's like, where's our faith really at? Is our faith in man or is it in God? Are we really giving for the right reasons? So going back to your question, because, I can really get on that. I'm sorry. But going back to your question, I think pastors are really dealing with financial challenges. Again, because people are really challenged with giving, because there's so many negative stigmas that have been put out concerning what the pastors do with the money, what the churches do with the money, and why it's important to give. Although we'll become members of, gyms, we won't even go work out, not even once a month, but they taking it out of our check. Every 2 weeks or every month, and the machine's collecting dust. But that's okay. We'll pay to be a member of something that we don't go to, but we going to the church every week. We have Bible study. We going on Sunday morning. We the ones that shout and just won't sit down, but yet we have a problem with investing in where our soul gets fed. We have a problem with sowing into the place that when our kid is locked up and we need somebody to write a letter and stand before the judge and tell him what a good boy Boo Boo is. We look past all that. And so that's a big challenge for the church right now. Giving, so financial, and then attendance. Because it took something for all of us to get used to. When you're used to seeing a full house and then it's a skeleton crew, and then there was even a time when we were just preaching to a camera. That was a transition for a lot of us. So, I think that we are definitely going with the flow, if you will. Ministry as we knew it has evolved, and we have to roll with it or get left behind.
I think you bring in some really great points because, as you said, we're hearing a lot now. You shouldn't tithe, forget the 10%.
Mhm.
Get the best that you can. You hear a lot about church hurt now, where people have been
Oh,
hurt.
yeah.
I'm not going. You're hearing a lot of people say, I can read my Bible at home. I don't need a pastor." So
Mhm.
I remember reading somewhere that you're dealing with a generation that don't need God because they have access to so much. But there's still a need to, as the Bible said, forsake not the assembly of yourselves together. And I think people have lost that.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
you are also a father, and shout out to your baby who just celebrated her birthday.
Yes, my middle girl turned 11. Yes, she did. Miss Nala.
Oh, oh my goodness. And you got your baby boy, Sebastian.
Yep, I got the baby boy Sebastian and then my oldest Gabrielle.
Wow. So you call your kids church kids,
Oh,
the two
yeah.
youngest ones. Why do you call them that?
Because they remind me of me growing up. Um, they don't really have a choice. I don't wake up and say, "Hey, y'all want to go this Sunday?" No, you're going. They don't have a choice. They're church kids, and they go with me everywhere. People always say, "Oh my gosh, your kids are so well behaved." And I always tell them they don't have a choice. What do you mean they're well behaved? They have to be, because I was divorced for a number of years. And so my kids went everywhere with me. On my jobs, if I had to preach, they sat right on the front row as little babies. If I had to sing somewhere, I was bringing them in, play rehearsals. I was talking to the director, like, listen, if you want me, I bring my kids with me. Now, I know how to give them snacks. I give them a little Tootsie Roll or whatever. They'll be quiet, but I got to bring them. And that's what I did for a long time. And so I tell everybody, my kids are church kids. They used to be in at church. They're used to having to sit down and be quiet and clap their hands or whatever it takes because they had to go with daddy for a long time.
And daddy ain't no joke. Keep them in line.
Yeah, but I will say this. A lot of people criticize parenting today. They say it's a lot different. I have made some changes, Uncle Carl, from the way that I was raised. And I always say, not that my parents raised me wrong, but I think they did the best they could with what they knew. They owe me no explanation. However, one thing I try to do different with my children, and I hope other people adapt, is we were taught to fear our parents when I was growing up. So our parents put the fear of God in us. My dad used to say, when he was whooping me, "I'll hang you between heaven and hell and beat your behind." That was his saying. I pick you up between heaven and hell. And he would pick me up by one arm and he would just wear me out. So that was between heaven and hell. And so I was afraid. So many things that I went through. And I went through some really, really tough things, especially as an adolescent. I didn't share those things with them. I was too afraid. I didn't know how they were going to react. I didn't know if they were going to support me. That's another thing. I didn't grow up in a household where it was real warm and fuzzy. A lot of hugs and kisses and things like that. That just wasn't the norm. It's not that I didn't feel that my parents loved me. It just wasn't a thing. They just didn't hug and show that sort of affection. And again, I think that may have to do with the way they were raised. And so it is what it is. However, what that's done for me is I try to be to my children what I didn't get and that I feel like I missed. So I do lots of affection, lots of hugging, lots of talking. I don't want my kids to fear me. They must respect me, however. So they don't fear me because they need to be able to come to me. They need to be able to talk to me. I don't want them to ever feel like they've done anything that's so horrible and that my reaction is going to be so great that they can't come to me. And so I think that's the little tweak that I made as a parent. You know, when my kids come to me with things, no matter what it is, I don't want to overreact so that they feel like, you know what, that's why I didn't want to tell you. Or I can't tell daddy stuff because he's going to be mad. No, no, no. I'm going to listen. And we're going to work through it together. Now, that doesn't mean that there won't be consequences for some of the things that you did, but I'm not going to kill you. It's not, it's not the end of the world. There's nothing new under the sun. A lot of little things they do. I've been there, done that, and can write the book about it. So let's just talk about it. And the other thing is having that open communication, because, once again, growing up, I didn't have much of a voice. It's you sit and listen, and don't ask me no questions. Well, why? Don't you dare ask me why was like a cuss word. Everything was because I said so. Where are we going? Don't worry about it. You just sit and ride. Those were the responses that I got. And again, I don't fault my parents. I think that's just what they knew. There were things that they used to say, I can remember being said to me like, sit your stupid butt down or sit your dumb behind down. Look at you with your silly self. Little remarks that they would say. And again, I believe that that's just probably what they knew. However, now I remember how that made me feel. I almost would adopt those words that were said. Like I was almost receiving what was spoken. So now I wouldn't dare tell my kids to sit their stupid self down because they're not stupid. Or sit there silly. Look how you looking dumb. I would never say that to my children. But those are things I had to learn. So even when I'm upset, the other thing is I had to learn, the Bible talks about being angry, but sin not. And so that means we have to exercise a level of self-control, meaning that when you see that you're angry or upset, everything can't be addressed right away. And that can be taboo in the Black community. Are we going to deal with it now? Before you go to bed, we're going to deal with that, or whatever. You just wait till I get home. But sometimes we're not ready to deal with it because we're so upset. We say and do things that we really don't mean in the heat of the moment. So another thing that I've learned as a parent is sometimes it's, okay, I need you to go have a seat and I'll talk to you later, or we'll talk about it in the morning. Once I've had a chance to pray about it, once I've had a chance to woo-side, digress, or whatever, take sleep on it and come back with a more level head. And I think, some people think it's weak or, this newfound parenting. No, it's mature because you realize that at the end of the day, these are your children. You don't mean them any harm, but you can do them harm when you act on impulse. So my kids are my pride and joy. I love my children. And I spend a lot of time with them. And even though I'm quite busy, I try to make sure that the time I do have is quality. It's very important.
I've seen you with them, and I can tell they love you back. Both, like the two little ones. I haven't seen you around your oldest daughter, but the two little ones, they love their daddy.
Oh yeah, they're my
All right,
biggest fan. They're awesome.
let's do another random question.
All right.
If they were to make a documentary about your life, what would your favorite scene be?
Mm, I think that is such a good question too. I think that my favorite scene would just be any scene of my day-to-day life. I think people don't realize how laid back and fun I am, meaning that, there are moments where I can be very serious because, I'm bivocational. So, I oversee multi-million-dollar assets. And so I have, there are times where I have to be very serious about the things that I have control over, in ministry and things like that. But on a daily basis, I'm pretty silly and pretty fun and always have a quick-witted remark or something. And so I think people would be, um, that would be pretty enjoyable for people to see.
To see you cracking jokes? Or,
Oh, yeah.
or wait a minute, let me go old school. See you capping on people?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Now, beyond ministry, you're an actor, you're a playwright, and a comedian. How did you get your start in performing arts?
Well, so it goes back to my upbringing because grew up singing. My mom had a community choir. I remember being, very small, toddler, 2, 3, 4 years old, singing with her community choir. And so I love to sing. I just love to sing, singing family. Everybody sings. My dad's side of the family, they all sing. And so that was always a passion. And then once I got into grade school, uh, I found a love for acting and being a part of productions. And I was so blessed to be at a school that did very, very elaborate productions, if you will. And I remember that was right around the time when we started trying to do like little skits and plays, even in church. And I just fell in love with it. And so that really became my focus. I think I played basketball freshman year of high school, even. But after that,
You play
everything was
basketball?
freshman year, and I wasn't good. For whatever reason, I was not that coordinated. I actually ended up becoming the manager towards the end of the season, and I did that for 2 more years. I was always a businessman, even as a kid. So I ended up doing that, making like, I think it was like $25 per game, keeping the score and doing something else. So I thought I was cool because I wore a little, like some slacks and a little tie, and I went to all the games with a briefcase. So it was cool because I still got to hang with my buddies who were on the team, and they made me feel like I was a part of the team, but I was the manager. And I'm like, y'all out there sweating and I'm cool, with some lemonade getting paid. So it was real good for me. I just kept score. But yeah, so after that, I mean, I had 3 choir classes every year. Every choir that they offered, I was in there. So I knew I had at least 3 A's. And so I did that. I did band in middle school. I did band freshman year of high school. And then that we had like musical theater in my middle school. And so I did every show, 42nd Street, Newsies and Grease, everything they, were doing, I was a part of it. Same thing in high school. And I just fell in love with the arts. And so I took some classes and, kind of brushed up on my theory. And I remember there were some plays happening in Detroit in the early 2000s, and I started auditioning. And every time I auditioned, I learned more and I took more classes, and I just fell in love with it. And I want to say this was maybe 15 years ago. I said, you know what? I want to write my own play. I always was a writer. I wrote music. And so I said, I can put together stories. And so I just sat down at my computer and began writing, and the stories just came, and the rest is history. I just, you know, I started doing my own shows, and people seem to really like it. And I've been really blessed to have another avenue that I really love, because it is truly one of my passions. And once again, it's one of those gifts that it's got to be God, because people ask me like, how long does it take you? Sometimes it's just a couple of days. I sit down at the computer and it just comes, the scenes and everything just comes together, and it's a lot of fun.
So I have to thank you because you expanded my territory and expanded my brand by allowing me to make my debut as an actor in a play last year. And we're back together this year. You have another
Yes.
play, another production that's called A New Suit for Easter. And um, I'm so honored to be a part of it, along with an awesome cast. Talk about the
Yes.
play and what people can expect when they come to see A New Suit for Easter.
First of all, let me say this. You're such a natural, by the way. For those who have not had the pleasure of seeing Uncle Carl on stage in a production, in a play, I'm telling you, I mean, you're amazing. You're amazing. The way that you were able to really embody the character was really, really nice to see. And you're doing the same thing in A New Suit for Easter. So I appreciate you being a part. You definitely bring a lot of value to what we're doing. And so,
Thank you.
I wanted to just publicly say thank you. And, I do believe that this is just a launching pad for you. There'll be many more characters and shows and movies. It's coming. It's coming because you got the goods.
All right. I can't wait to be on. Well, I'm an extra on a Tubi movie, but I can't wait to have a speaking role.
Oh yeah, it's coming. It's coming real soon. Um, but yeah, so A New Suit for Easter, it's a show that I wrote about 10 years ago. I've made some tweaks here and there. As a matter of fact, it was re-copywritten about 5 years ago. And it's a very fun but interesting show. It's a big plot twist, and I always have a hard time kind of giving description of this show without giving it away. But it's a family who's really struggling. There's a family, Samantha and Miguel, they're husband and wife. They have a son named Jamar, and they're having some financial troubles because Miguel, quite frankly, can't keep a job, and Samantha isn't working as well because she has some health challenges. And so, of course, their son, like many church kids, like my kids, it's Easter's coming up. He assumes that he's going to get a new Easter suit, but mom has to explain to him that not only can she not afford a new Easter suit, but that's not what Easter is about. It's really Resurrection Sunday. We're celebrating the resurrection of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And so you have that bit. But going back to the financial piece, Miguel's kind of made a lot of not necessarily enemies, but people aren't happy with him. I mean, landlord's not happy with him because, rent's behind. Friends and family aren't happy with him because either he's borrowing money, he's begging folks for a job, he's always, complaining and just a downer. And so a lot of people have some differences with Miguel. And so because of those differences, something really shocking happens during the show. And so the second half of the show is all about trying to figure out how this shocking act actually happens. So it's a big mystery. It's so much fun. Again, some very serious points of the show, especially when we talk about what our Savior went through to pay the price for us. But other than that, it's comedy. Absolute comedy, which is what I love to write. I love to write comedy. I think when people come out to shows, they're looking for a comedic relief. They're looking for a joyous occasion. And so that's what I try to provide for people when they come out to see a Ron Todd production.
Oh yeah, people gonna laugh. They because we have laughed in rehearsals.
Oh my gosh.
Trying to get through some of the scenes have been hilarious. Talk about some of the cast members.
So, and it's interesting because I've done this show a couple times before, but it's the cast. Let me tell you, this cast here, you guys are so funny, and your comedic timing and the fact that you get it. Sometimes you have a cast that'll read the script and they're missing it, like they're not understanding where you're going with the character or how you want the character to say the lines or express themselves or inflect their voice, and you try to coach them and direct them, but they just don't quite get it. Well, this cast, they got it too good. So shout out to Alita Henderson, who's playing Viola. And Alita, I've worked with her. It's been many, many years now. I remember doing shows with her over 15 years ago. And she's still just as amazing as ever. Strong, powerful voice. You'll get to hear her sing in this show as well. Of course, we talked about you, Uncle Carl. Then we have Staffy Blakely, who this time plays Uncle Carl's love interest. And there's a little twist to that too. So you guys definitely got to check that out. But Staffy, she's a jewel. She's been doing this for so long, and she's just so, so good. She's just good. She's really good at what she does. And of course, she'll be singing. Kimmy Komet. Kimmy and I have been working. Kimmy is like my rock when it comes to Ron Todd Productions. She always assists with directing. She assists with the business end of things. She really, really takes a lot of load off of me, but she's actually playing the lead in this show. She's playing Samantha. And she's really good too. She's an actor, she's a model. But this show, you'll also get to hear her sing as well, which I
Kimmy's gonna
think
sing this time.
oh yeah. Yeah, she's
Oh
gonna
yeah.
sing.
Uh-oh.
I think you'll
Such a
enjoy
good heart.
Oh
Great.
my gosh. Such a good heart and such an old soul. Kimmy's a young lady, and but she's so mature and has so much drive and just brings so much value to what we do. So we have her, and we have Brenda Oliver, who's a great actress, and she'll be singing this time. Tylea Green, who's a newbie to the industry, but she's really coming out strong, doing a good job. Sonia Agu, who plays Letha, the landlord, she is hilarious.
Hilarious. Sonia is crazy.
So funny, you guys. She's doing an amazing job. Let's see, who else am I? Oh, we have Hosea. who's doing a great job. Hosea Parker, right? Am
Yeah,
I saying his
Hosea
last name right?
Parker.
Hosea Parker, yeah. Who you actually referred to us, who's doing a really good job playing Miguel. We're super, super excited about that. Pastor Steve Lee the third, he's a part of it as well. He was just in a play over at Greater Emmanuel, and I saw him, and he did such an amazing job. And so I wanted to have him part of this production, and he's doing a great job with this character as well. So super excited about that. Shay Vontez, Godfrey, who started writing his own plays now and doing well with that. And he's a phenomenal actor, and he's doing a good job. I've had him in just about all of my shows, and I really
He
love
is
what he.
he is so funny.
So funny. Oh my
Once he
gosh.
gets rolling,
I'm telling I have to tell Shay, like, Shay, that part's not supposed to be funny. And we're like crying, laughing. But he is absolutely hilarious. And we can't forget about Andrea Davis, who just joined us. She's playing Sonia. Same thing. I've worked with her for a long time. She used to be the stage manager in some of my productions and other ones that I've been a part of. She's very strong, and she's doing an amazing job as well. We have a really good cast. We really, really do.
and a lot of us were part of the play that you did last year, so we're
Mhm.
used to each other now. So like coming back together, it's like family reunion for us.
Yeah. And I'll be honest with you. Even when I do shows out of state, like I've done a series of shows in Newport News, Virginia, and I have a whole cast there that every time I do a show there, everybody comes back and we always do it together. And I'm really trying to continue to build that team here in Detroit. Because it's just like Tyler Perry, you're going to see Mr. Brown, you're going to see Cora, you're going to see Bam. He builds this core. He'll add some, he'll subtract some if necessary, but there's always a core that you'll see in every production. That's because good people are hard to find. And when you find those who understand the vision, and I don't do a lot of drama and mess. We put it on the stage, but after that, we're family and we have a really good time, which is a lot different than what people are used to in a lot of larger production companies.
Mm.
And so, because I really want that to be the case, I tend to stick with those who are able to flow in that vein. It's like if you kind of can't get with that, then Ron Todd Productions may not be for you. But if you can, I'm going to hold on to you.
So everybody's got to get ready for that play on March 16th and
Yes.
17th. March
Yeah.
16th and 17th. Now we also have to talk Ron Todd, the recording artist,
Yes,
starting in
sir.
2017. Talk about the beginning of your recording journey.
Oh my gosh. So, I signed my first record deal at 13 years old with Hosanna Music Group, One Nation Entertainment. And I had a whole distribution deal with Warner Brothers. It was a really cool thing. I went through this whole artist development program, and then nothing happened. All these promises, nothing happened. And so I've been recording professionally since, though. And so, fast forward many years later, we'll say, I'm still doing it. And believe it or not, I have never recorded a full length album. Never.
And it's okay.
And I'm okay with it. I put out an EP maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And every year or two, I'll release a single or so. And I kind of just that's my thing. We're in a generation now where people don't appreciate a whole body of work like they used to.
Yeah.
They come up in their mind whether they feel like your album has what they call skips or not. But people usually, they grab the singles and that's pretty much it. So because I'm an independent artist, I rather use my cash wisely, and I just give them what they're gonna buy anyway, which is a good
The
good
one,
single.
so
So
I
yeah.
totally have to agree because now, even for myself, to have to find time to sit and listen to somebody's whole project, if I
Oh yeah.
can't listen on my 20-minute drive to work, I'm not going to listen to a whole project, but that's a whole nother story. You have a new single out. I can get a prayer through, and it's churchy. Talk about that.
Yes.
Talk about the story behind the song.
This is actually an old song again that I wrote several years ago. Recorded it before with Ryan Rutley, and so Ryan and I got together last year, and he's like, "Man, I really love I Can Get a Prayer Through. I said, I really would love to redo it. I did it some years ago, and I just think we can polish it up a little bit. He's like, man, let's do it. And we did. And so I wrote I Can Get a Prayer Through at a time where I really wanted to send a message that I was a gospel artist. I think that a lot of times we have a lot of inspirational artists, and we have a lot of artists that sing about really nice things, but they don't sing about the word. And so I used to have a saying, I'm gonna stay in the book, And so we all know James 5:16 talks about the effectual, fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. And so the song is really just scripture, just saying how I can get a prayer through. The prayers of the righteous availeth much. I can get a prayer through. Fervent prayer availeth much. And so I just kind of arranged these scriptures in there. You have this nice churchy song. And so Detroit, we're known for a good groove. And so that was really important to me. And what I love about Ryan is whatever I mouthed, he played it. And because I told him I want dun 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 dun. I'm like, I want a break. And he did everything I did with my mouth. And that's what I love about. So shout out to Ryan, such an amazing musician and producer. I love someone who can just listen, these guys who can just play by ear, and they listen to what you do, and they just do whatever, it is. And he literally took it and ran with it. And so I really like it, and a lot of people seem to really gravitate to it. I think it's a good message right now to remind people you can get a prayer through, fervent prayer availeth much. So,
I'm about to shout off of that right there.
yes, sir.
So, how can people get tickets to a new suit for Easter?
Well, they can go to my website, beingrontodd.com, BEINGRONTODD. beingrontodd.com. You can get tickets there, or inbox me on any of my social media platforms. I am Ron Todd on Facebook. I am Ron Todd, the number 4 real. So Ron Todd for real on Instagram, and Twitter is at Pastor Ron Todd. So you can go to any of those mediums, inbox me or DM me or whatever, and I can get you a ticket, or reach out to Uncle Carl or any of the other actors, and they can get you tickets as well.
And again, the dates for a new suit for Easter are
March 16th and 17th. So we have 2 shows on the 16th, one at 3 p.m. and one at 7 p.m. And on the 17th, yes, we have a 4 p.m. Showing as well. And the shows will be at Christian Family Ministries, which is 2261 Marquette Street, Detroit, Michigan, 48089.
And if people want to get your new single or check out some of your older music, how can they get the
Yes.
music?
Please get it all. Go to any digital outlet. It's funny. You type in Ron Todd, you'll get the song I did on the Gospel Music Workshop of America Detroit Chapters Project. That'll come up. You'll get a song called Opposite Ends of the Bridge that I did on a play soundtrack with Air Dion. Like everything that I've ever done, it's gonna come up if you just put my name in and grab it. It's all good. I promise. Grab it and let it bless you.
That workshop song was hot too.
Oh, thank you.
That was
I
a
was
great
so
song.
honored because it was such a pivotal moment for the chapter, because they had never taken on a praise and worship song, not just on that album, but on any album. And so it was a history moment for the chapter, because for the first time they did a praise and worship song, and I think people were really surprised and pleasantly surprised at that. And so I was honored to be a part of that moment.
So as we wrap up, speak to someone who's struggling and tell them how they can get a prayer through.
Don't give up. We used to hear growing up all the time, keep the faith. And I used to say, why do folk always say that? It's like, is that the only thing church folks know how to say is keep the faith? But everything is comes back to faith. The messages that I preach almost every Sunday are faith-based. The Bible talks about faith is the substance of things what hope for, evidence of things not seen. And a lot of times we get caught up on what we don't see. But if you can just believe it, I'm here to tell you, you will receive it. There's so many things that have already happened in the spirit realm that we're just waiting to manifest here in the natural. But I believe that once you pray, all you got to do is believe. So talking about getting a prayer through, you don't have to be redundant. You pray, and then the next step is to believe. God is not slow. So we don't have to go back 10 times praying for the same thing. He heard you the first time. Just believe. You may not see it. Nothing has changed. You might say, Pastor Ryan, you don't see my bank account. You don't see what I'm dealing with in my house. You don't see what I'm dealing with on my job. That's right. It might still look the same, but God is working behind the scenes in your favor. And before you know it, when you least expect it, suddenly things will turn around. So I just want you to believe, hold on to your faith, keep believing God in this season. And I'm telling you, he's going to blow your mind with his goodness.
Wow. Again, we're speaking with Pastor Ron Todd. Make sure you get tickets to the play, A New Suit for Easter. It is going to be hilarious, March 16th, March 17th. Make sure you go download his new single, I Can Get a Prayer Through. And I like to close like I always close. Remember to work like you don't need the money, love like you've never been hurt, and dance like no one's watching you. God bless until we meet again.
The Carl B. Phillips Show.
Thank you for listening to the Carl B. Phillips Show. For more information, go to carlbphillips.com.
The Carl B. Phillips Show.
Follow Carl B. Phillips on Instagram so we can stay in contact with each other.